Welcome everybody from the beautiful Ozarks here in Missouri. I did something this week I didn't think I would do, and I'm going to show that to you now. I bought a train engine. So I have all my track laid out. If you can see that all the way around, it didn't do it exactly like I was planning on. And I do have that rock that I did a couple weeks ago, the one that my kids said looked like a landscaping brick. But that was my first one, and I'm going to use it. It's not attached, but I'm going to use it anyway. And I have a barn. My wife bought me that for Christmas, so I've set it out here. So we're going to do a couple of laps here with the train, and hopefully I won't have any issues. I've been having some issues on the connections. I used FlexTrack for 3 of the 4 curves, and I'm not very good at FlexTrack right now. I'm not a big fan of it, but really I have some issues sometimes as we go around the track. So anyway, we're started up. We're going to turn on the headlight. I'm going to turn on the little flashy light on the front of the train. I'm not sure what that's called. I call it the little flashy light. So then there's a caution light, and I'm not sure if that's the right term for the light on top, but it's there. So anyway, we're going to do a lap here and see what happens. So here we go. Past the landscaping brick. We should go to the inner loop now. Yay! We have a horn, and then we have bells. So we made it without any issues. That's a good thing. So on these flex curves, or flex pieces on these curves, see that's a connection, and sometimes they just don't work very well for me. I don't know. There's another one right there. There's another one right there. But I had to play with them quite a bit to get them to work out very well. And there's another one. Just kind of showing you this is one I really had a lot of issues with, but it finally got it to go. And it's kind of got it's pretty smooth across there. So anyway, that's what I'm finally got the track done. I have my landscaping brick. I have a barn. My wife got that at Menards, I think, at Christmas time. So I'm going to have to wire it down to hook it up to some power. It's got lights and a flashing red light on top and stuff. So while I have the camera the phone in my hand, I'm going to show you a map, which is this is what I'm going to be talking about a little bit later. But this is an atlas, not to be confused with Atlas Track. This is a atlas map. My humor sucks. So anyway, this is Springfield, Missouri, which is down in the southwest part of Missouri. If you go just southwest of Springfield, you come to Republic right there, and that's where my roots are planted. If you keep going southwest, you come to a town called Cassville, right there. And that's one of the towns we're going to be talking about here in a little bit. And if you go just west of there about 5 miles, you come to a little town called Exeter. So Cassville and Exeter are what we're going to be talking about here in a little bit. So I just kind of wanted to give you a little idea of where they were in our great state of Missouri. So I'm going to go put the phone up on the mounting bracket, which is the freezer. And we're going to we're crooked. I get OCD about some of this stuff sometimes, sorry. So, a couple of things I wanted to tell you. I've got my notes. So I was really, things, I don't know about your part of the country, but here some things opened up a little bit this week, and our hobby shops opened up. They were allowed to open up Monday, but we have 2 in the area, and they both are closed on Sunday and Monday. So the train shop is called Trainland. Obviously, they specialize in trains. So they open at 10 o'clock Tuesday morning, and I was there at 10:05. I had a bunch of supplies and stuff I wanted to get. So I got asking him about engines and whether he had anything, and he said, I have 3. I said, I was looking for DCC, and he said, well, I have 1. So he said, what line were you looking for? And I said, well, probably BNSF. It goes through Republic all the time. So he said, well, I don't have that. And I asked him, well, how long would it take him to get one in? And he started on his computer and started to look it up, and he was having some kind of issue. And I said, well, just forget it. Let me see this one down there. And he bent down, picked it up, and I opened it up, and it's a Frisco engine. And Frisco was big in Springfield, and Frisco stuff around here is kind of hard to come by. So I just told him I would take it. And my father-in-law worked for the Frisco, and then he ended up being manager of the Frisco Trucking Company. And so anyway, we had, everybody around here that's a little bit older either worked for the Frisco or had a relative work for the Frisco. If they didn't have that, they at least knew somebody that worked for the Frisco. So anyway, I was tickled to death to get this Frisco engine. So anyway, I bought it plus some other stuff that I was needing, and I was looking for some 18-inch curved track. And he said he didn't have any new, but he had some used, and so he got digging around through a box and came up with 12 pieces for me. And after he got done doing that, he had to sit down. He was out of breath. And I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I've been closed for 6 weeks." And he said, "My health went south while I was off." And I said, "Well, do you need anything?" He says, "No, I just need to sit for a little bit." So anyway, we got talked for quite a while. And I think he's okay financially in the shop. He's been there a very long time, 30 or 40 years probably. I would say at least 30 years. I'd probably pretty good. Yeah, but he's about my age, 65-ish. And anyway, I guess due to his health, he's going to have to end up either selling or closing Trainland there in Springfield. If he closes up, there's no place else around here to get train items. So that was kind of hard to hear. Gosh, I've been going in there for a very long time. I used to work just down the street from there for quite a while, and I'd go down there in my lunch hour and just kind of look around and browse and kind of dream and figure out what I was wanting to do in the future. But anyway, so when I left there, I went over to the other hobby shop. It's called Sleeth. That's Sleeth. That's the gentleman's last name. His first name's Dave. But anyway, Sleeth Hobby Shop. So I went in there and got some. He specializes in the airplane models. Like I've shown you in previous videos, that one that I'm building. And he also does radio controlled cars, and also is into the skateboards. But those three things are his big items. But I guess being closed, it really hurt him financially. And I bought there what I needed, and I was the only one in there. And I was talking to him. I've known him for a long time. I've shopped there for a long time, and we were talking, and he was telling me about the hardship of being closed. He still had to pay rent, still had to pay insurance, still had to pay utilities and insurance and all that stuff. He had a business, so that stuff you still have to continue to do. He said he applied for some of the care money, but whether he was going to get it or not, he had no idea. He had one employee that worked with him, and he told him not to come back to work to file for unemployment. So he said he just wasn't going to be able to pay him. So, and he thinks he's probably going to have to close up. He's an older gentleman. He's old enough. He's probably early 70s. And those are the two only hobby shops in this area. And if they both close up, I'm going to have to order absolutely everything online. I've got, a friend of mine that I've known him from grade school, and he's the one that got me into the airplanes. And he lives in Neosho, Missouri, and anyway, he was telling me that he got looking around for the hobby shops, and the closest one to us is in Pittsburg, Kansas. So it's it's kind of devastating, really, because to get ready to fly the plane, you can't buy fuel for the airplane online, the way I understand it. I haven't tried, but according to my friend, you can't. So I would have to drive to Pittsburg, Kansas to buy fuel for the airplane if I needed it. So telling you all that to let you know, your local hobby shops have been through a very rough time. It's really a good time to support them if you can. They need our help, just like all small businesses do. So anyway, with that being said, and before I get into the map issue, there's one other thing I wanted to bring up about my engine that I forgot to tell you. So I'm going to bring it over there. So see the coupler here? that focus. There you go. So that is the coupler that came on this engine. Now, my box car, my other train cars have that kind of coupler. There we go. So I can't hook these up to this. So I'm not real sure which way to go. Whether to change it on here or on the box cars. I got looking, and it seems like a pair of couplers is between like $3.50 and $4 a piece. A box car, you can get them for $5 sometimes around here. Most of the time at the trade shows they're $5 to $10. So I don't know. It's just, I didn't know that the coupler that's on this engine, I had not ever seen that on HO train before. It's probably more realistic. I assume that's why they put that on there. I really don't want to mess with the engine. I mean, it looks like it's just you undo a screw and that's all it takes. But anyway, I kind of like to leave it original because it was kind of expensive. Oh, and something else I was going to tell you about the guy at Trainland. When he handed me this, he told me, he says, I paid $199 for it. That was my cost. He says, I'll sell it to you at that cost. And I don't know if it's good or bad. I have no idea, but I bought it for that. And when it came down to the 18-inch curves, the 12 pieces, the used ones, none of them really looked very good. So I didn't say anything to him about them, as he was handing them to me one at a time, but they were in pretty rough shape. I mean, I'm sure I could get them working, but I'd probably spend a couple of days cleaning them up and getting the connections all good and all that stuff, and clean the track up. I'd probably have to repaint the tiles on quite a few of them. But anyway, he said just take them. He just gave them to me. And that's kind of what your local hobby shops do. I end up just laying them down and using it as an outline to lay my track, and then I put them back in a sack. And the next time I go back there, I'm going to take them back and give them to him, and he can give them to somebody else that may need them worse than I do. So, but anyway, the coupler there is the issue. I have that. So any advice on that would be super. So getting to Cassville and Exeter. Cassville, I don't know why people do what they do, but anyway, this town is in a valley with Ozark Hills around them, right? So when you get one of those 100-year rains that we get like every 4 or 5 years, it floods. There is a creek that goes down through the center of town. It's called Flat Creek. And so the water drains from all these hills down to Flat Creek. Flat Creek floods and floods the town. And of course, one of those deals, well, we need to take care of this, and politicians go, we need to take care of this, as they're sitting there with a flood, and they never do, and a few years later it floods again, and we need to take care of this, and of course they never do. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. Well, probably won't get off my soapbox. So anyway, so this is going back. I'm not a big history buff. I like it. Kind of, I don't read a whole lot about history and that kind of stuff. And you guys that research this stuff about your trains and set up your your trains to emulate a certain time period, and make all the buildings exactly, I like they were at the time and stuff. I admire you for that. That's you guys do a marvelous job. It's just not my cup of tea. I know what I want to do on my train set, and that's probably what I'll do. And it probably won't be similar to any railroad, around. So anyway, so this is going back to the late 1800s in Cassville, and when they had bad weather, they couldn't go anywhere. It was so muddy and stuff that they were stuck, literally stuck. So they couldn't go anywhere. So so Cassville has flooded. It flooded in 2017 and flooded again last year in May. That's just the two most recent weeks. So anyway, I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to read a little bit of this, and it's, to me, it's interesting, and you'll find out why. And I'm not a big history buff or anything. So, but anyway, this is kind of interesting since it's close to me here in my location. So in January of 1896, a gentleman by the name of J.M. Bayliss called a meeting of several citizens in Cassville and talked to them about building a railroad that went from Cassville to Exeter. The reason they wanted to build it to go to Exeter is because the Frisco went through Exeter. So they could connect Cassville to the Frisco. So they started, so they got all the easements and all that stuff in a pretty short period of time, because that was in January of 1896, and they started laying track in June 11th, 1896. And they finished in Cassville on the 20th they started laying the track June 11th. They finished laying the track June 20th, 1896. The actual length of the line was 5 miles and 400 feet. Everything was completed in July of 1896 after adding 2 spurs. One spur ran to the Cassville roller mill, and the other to Mr. Bayliss' addition to town. And I'm not real sure what the addition to town means, so evidently he had an addition to the town. So anyway, the train's rolling stock consists of 2 engines, a box car, a passenger coach, and a combination passenger coach and baggage combination. Both passengers and shippers depended on the railroad that was known as the Cassville and Western Railroad. And by 1919, the railroad had gone bankrupt and was purchased by 2 gentlemen, James Ault and Dave Dingler. Dingler. They gave a new name to the railroad. It's called the Cassville Exeter Railroad, or the C&E. Mr. Dingler was the president of the company, and Mr. Ault was the bookkeeper. And Mr. Dingler was a full-fledged railroad engineer. Mr. Dingler shortly had the railroad showing a good profit in articles of the shortest railroad in America, and that's one of its distinctions of why it was so noteworthy, but it's not the only one. It's not the only thing that made it noteworthy, and we'll get that here in a minute. So it was showing a good profit, and articles of the shortest railroad in America were being published in the New York Times, Newsweek, St. Louis Post-Dispatch, Associated Press, and lots more articles. The C&E had become famous, and Mr. Dingler had become a world figure in the railroad business. And finally, on September 11th, 1956, the C&E made its last run from Cassville to Exeter to deliver an empty boxcar back to the Frisco. The C&E had served Cassville community faithfully for 60 years. For much of that time, in the early years of Cassville's growth, it was the only link to the outside world of commerce. Who could say what the history of Cassville might have had been had not the world's shortest standard gauge railroad been built? And most of the information I just read, just so I'm proper with this, came off the Berry County Museum's webpage, and the article was written by Irene Horner, and I just really condensed that down. There is still one more piece of information that makes this little railroad even more unique. I had mentioned to you that Cassville was in a valley. Well, Exeter is up on top of a hill. So the railroad ran uphill all the way to Exeter. So on the return trip from Exeter to Cassville, the train didn't need any power. It coasted all the way back from Exeter to Cassville. And that was the second thing that made it really noteworthy. It was the shortest railroad in America, and it only needed power going one direction. Then there's this from Vivian Rawler's scrapbook. On October 4th, 1917, as suddenly as an earthquake, 2 runaway heavily loaded freight cars struck an empty boxcar on a switch track at the Cassville Mill and Power Company and plowed directly across the street and crashed the boxcar into the home of Mrs. Zuma Bloomer, wrecking the home, an 8-room residence, and killing the older daughter, Miss Ruth, aged 14 years. Mrs. Bloomer, son Willie, and daughter Laverne escaped with slight injuries. So I just happened to come across that article as I was kind of looking into other information on the C&E. So that was kind of a tragic thing. So why am I telling you all this? Well, when I ended up buying this engine from the Frisco, it brought back a lot of memories for me, because my father-in-law, my wife Patty, dad, was born and raised in Cassville, and his dad worked on a C&E, and my father-in-law's name was Bob, and I've seen his house where he was born and raised several times, and it's up high on a hill, and it doesn't have ever had any danger of flooding. But when the train would come back into Cassville every day, my father-in-law would go out as a little boy and see his father. His father would be out there and waving to him. And he one day when he went out to see to greet his father as he went by, his father was laying down, which is really unusual. So my father-in-law was 11 years old at the time, and he went in and told his mother, and come to find out that his dad had died died of a heart attack while on this C&E railroad. But so when I think of the Frisco, and my father-in-law ended up working on the Frisco, and then transferring over to the trucking side of the company. It just brought back all these memories. But the history of that little train, you ought to look it up sometime if that kind of stuff interests you. The C&E meant a lot to Cassville. There's still a lot of people that talk about it. If you go down to Cassville, if you ask some of the old timers, they will certainly remember it. Now, I came by a picture and I printed it out, and I don't know how this is going to look, but evidently the engine is in a scrapyard. Well, now this picture was taken in 1970, and it was in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And it kind of looks like it might have been in a scrapyard or a train. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to try to show this to you. Now, I don't know how well you'll be able to see it. Yeah, it's not coming through too bad. So anyway, there it is. So that's all I really had today, but I got my train up and running. I've done a little work on the airplane. I got that far on the fuselage, but I haven't really worked on it for several days. So anyway, thanks for listening. I try to get more videos out. I just haven't really had the time. I try. Just been really busy doing stuff, and these people that retire and go back to work because they're bored, I just don't get it. I just don't get it. We stay busy all the time. I don't know. You know, to me, life is to live, and you gotta live every day. And I just don't see sitting around in a rocking chair as a way to spend retirement. I've looked forward to it for a long time, and I'm going to have fun. So, sorry for the philosophy. Anyway, y'all have a good week. Stay safe, and we will catch you next time.